The story begins in a forest nestled among towering mountains. 7 individuals, including a person named Megan and her group of friends, arrive in a boat, seemingly excited about their forest adventure. However, they remain oblivious to the gruesome reality that awaits them in the woods. The forest is marred by the presence of numerous dead bodies, all in a severely deteriorated state. Undeterred, the group disembarks from their boat and unloads their belongings onto a wooden bridge. To their surprise, there's a warning sign that explicitly forbids entry into the forest due to its dangerous nature. Despite the clear warning, they disregard it and venture deeper into the forest. As they progress, they encounter not only human corpses but also the rotting carcasses of animals, filling the air with a putrid and unsettling stench that hangs heavily in the atmosphere. The group continues their journey by getting on a bus, and one of their friends, who also serves as the bus driver, is quite familiar with the area. As they observe their surroundings, a sense of foreboding settles upon them, as it's clear that something unsettling has occurred here. However, the exact nature of the events remains a mystery to them. Upon reaching a cabin, they encounter 2 individuals who were expecting them. One of these newcomers is a professor specializing in twins, while the other is a captain. It becomes apparent that the group's purpose for coming to this eerie place is related to a college project, specifically an investigation involving the corpses found in the area. The professor divides them into 2 teams and assigns them their tasks. Recognizing the lack of network connectivity in this remote location, he equips them with walkie-talkies for communication, which do not require a signal. While the bus driver takes a smoke break, an accident occurs as his cigarette inadvertently falls into a drum, causing it to release a black liquid. This substance also impacts the walkie-talkies, causing them to catch fire when touched. Attempting to clean the walkie-talkies, one of the friends burns his finger due to the scalding black liquid. The group reluctantly settles into their designated room, which is in a state of disarray and contains dead bodies. Despite their discomfort, they have no choice but to stay there. The professor starts monitoring the surveillance cameras placed throughout the area. As they begin their investigative work, the bus driver distributes the walkie-talkies to the group and takes on the task of preparing food. He cooks meat, but as it cooks, blood starts dripping, creating a grisly scene. Megan and one of her friends decide to investigate a nearby corpse lying next to a pond as part of their assignment. Megan's 2 friends approach the corpse lying near the bus and begin recording a video of it. However, the body is in such a severe state of decomposition that it's barely recognizable. They discuss its condition while documenting it. Meanwhile, Megan's friend Daniel and his companion investigate a corpse in the car's trunk, finding it in an equally gruesome state, infested with worms. Daniel takes a sample from the corpse and one of the worms, deducing that the corpse is approximately a week old. The professor instructs everyone to return before evening. While the bus driver is cooking, he notices that some pieces of meat are missing, and the black liquid is nearby. This oddity alarms him, and he becomes suspicious that someone may be nearby. He goes to the professor to voice his concerns, but the professor dismisses him, preoccupied with his research and unconcerned about potential danger. The professor advises the driver to focus on his responsibilities and not dwell on such matters. Deflated, the driver returns to his cooking. The driver later shares his discovery of strange corpses on the way with Megan and her friend. This angers the professor, who insists they should not be bothered with such findings and should concentrate on their assigned tasks. Megan's friend attempts to inspect a corpse in the room, but the professor intervenes, forbidding her to research it and instructing her to join Megan instead. Later, when Megan's friend leaves the room, the driver witnesses the previously stationary corpse begin to move. Terrified, he rushes to inform Megan's friend about it, but she initially doubts his claim and leaves. However, the corpse indeed comes to life, appearing grotesque and emitting black liquid from its mouth. Megan's friend, while examining a corpse, becomes aware that there is someone else in the jungle. She returns to Megan and reports her findings, but Megan insists they should focus only on the designated corpses as per the professor's instructions. As the driver goes around delivering food to everyone, he hears an eerie sound emanating from the jungle. It turns out to be the moving corpse, and he panics, attempting to flee. However, in his haste, he trips and falls unconscious. Meanwhile, One of Megan's friends realizes that their walkie-talkie battery has died and begins heading back to the cabin. She tells her friend that she saw something strange in the jungle and is feeling scared, but her friend doesn't initially believe her. The professor is attempting to call everyone back to the cabin using the walkie-talkies, but the signal is not reaching them, and the driver is still unaware of the situation. Megan's friend decides to investigate the room where the corpse had been lying but is shocked to find it missing. She rushes to inform Megan but realizes she can't communicate through the walkie-talkie due to the dead battery. She starts making her way back to the cabin but becomes aware that someone or something is nearby, and it turns out to be the same living corpse from earlier. Megan's friend hears Megan's voice and starts heading toward her. However, when Megan's friend catches sight of the approaching figure, she becomes incredibly frightened and flees from the scene. This figure, resembling a zombie, will now be referred to as a zombie for clarity. The zombie continues to pursue Megan's friend, who becomes entangled in thorns while running and sustains injuries. Taking advantage of her vulnerability, the zombie starts gnawing on her fingers, causing immense pain. She remains trapped amidst the thorns and cannot escape. The ordeal continues as the zombie proceeds to bite her neck and feed on her. Her injuries from the thorns and the relentless attack by the zombie result in excruciating suffering. Megan eventually arrives at the location with thorns, searching for her friend. She finally discovers her injured friend at a distance, with the zombie still lurking nearby. Megan manages to extract her friend from the thorns and brings her to a nearby cabin, where she begins providing assistance and care to her severely wounded friend. Megan desperately tries to staunch her friend's bleeding with a cloth, but the blood loss is severe, and Megan becomes increasingly overwhelmed. Gasping for breath, she does her best to address the situation. In an effort to keep the dire circumstances hidden, Megan hastily closes the cabin door, concealing the fact that her friend has been bitten by a zombie and may be on the brink of becoming one herself. Meanwhile, the driver approaches the professor and warns him about the presence of zombies, emphasizing the imminent danger and the need to gather everyone and evacuate. The professor remains skeptical at first, but after the driver persists, he decides to search for the group, with the driver accompanying him. During their search, the professor notices that the black liquid has contaminated all the walkie-talkies but is unable to discern its significance. Megan, inside the cabin, witnesses her friend's transformation into a zombie and narrowly escapes an attack. Simultaneously, the driver monitors a camera feed and spots a zombie near Megan's cabin. As tension mounts, two more of Megan's friends approach the cabin door, unaware of the horrors that await them. Inside the cabin, Megan calls her two friends inside and urgently informs them that all the corpses have reanimated and are turning into zombies, emphasizing the pervasive danger. She warns them about the perilous situation that surrounds them. Meanwhile, Daniel and his friend observe the corpse they had been researching on the car, only to find it in a horrific state, with its body torn apart. Daniel suspects that the professor may have manipulated the corpse's condition to frighten them. However, his friend believes that something genuinely sinister is afoot and that the corpse's condition is a result of this. Troubled by what they've discovered, Daniel's friend decides to go to the cabin alone. The driver and Megan's friend continue to implore the professor, emphasizing the presence of zombies throughout the area. Nevertheless, the professor remains skeptical and keeps finding excuses to persist with the project. Megan's friend, who is now alone, heads toward the cabin but loses their way. Eventually, they encounter a zombie approaching them. Panic sets in as they run to escape, but a fence blocks their path, and they struggle to open the lock. Zombies converge from both sides, and despite their efforts to break free, they are captured by two zombies, who tear into them and begin devouring their stomach in a gruesome scene. Back in the cabin, the group collectively decides to leave the area the following morning. Daniel eventually arrives at the cabin and realizes that neither his friend nor Megan are aware of the dire situation outside. Fearing for their safety, he grabs a hammer and sets off to find Megan. Simultaneously, Megan's two friends venture out in search of Daniel's friend, only to discover that he has already transformed into a zombie. Megan, trapped in the cabin, finds herself in a tense standoff with her friend, ultimately using a weapon to defend herself. In the process, she inadvertently damages the wooden floor of the cabin. In the tense situation within the cabin, the zombified friend of Megan's other friend attempts to enter. Trapped, Megan confronts her friend and applies a substance to their face, causing them to burn. She tries to end her friend's suffering by cutting their throat with a piece of wood, but to her horror, her friend does not die. Megan's friend, compelled to save her from her zombified friend, also attempts to kill them. Megan takes action by driving a pointed stick into her zombified friend's head, ultimately ending their life. Megan then retrieves the sample of the corpse she had collected earlier and escapes through the roof while her zombified friend tries to follow. Megan employs a chemical that causes her zombified friend's body to explode. As darkness falls, the driver seals the door with a nail. A zombie emerges from inside, and the professor shoots at it, unsure if the zombie is truly dead. They then hear sounds at the door, and the professor speculates that it might be students approaching. Despite the driver's caution, the professor opens the door, only to find no one outside. Suddenly, two zombies appear and attack the professor. The professor fires his gun at them, but none of the bullets seem to harm the zombies. Realizing that attacking the zombies is effective, Megan takes the stick out of her friend's head and ventures outside the cabin. She calls out to a nearby zombie, luring it towards her. However, just as this happens, Daniel arrives at the cabin. Daniel is shocked when he sees the gruesome state of Megan's friend's dead body. However, before he can react, he makes a phone call, which Megan urgently tells him to stop. The zombie that Daniel inadvertently summoned enters the cabin and begins consuming the remains of Megan's friend. Seizing the opportunity, Megan and Daniel attack the zombie, with Megan targeting its stomach using the stick, and Daniel attempting to strike its head. Unfortunately, Daniel's attack misses the mark, leaving the zombie undeterred. Fearing for their lives, both flee from the scene. Meanwhile, the driver and the professor effectively incinerate one of the zombies. However, during the struggle, the zombie manages to bite the professor. In response, the professor applies medicine to his wound. The driver gathers supplies to burn the zombie but realizes that the professor's gun is outside. The two venture out to retrieve it. Outside, they discover that the area where they used to prepare food is now occupied by a ravenous zombie, wreaking havoc and devouring meat. The professor instructs the driver to enter the cabin to keep an eye on the other zombie, which has also taken an interest in their location due to the scent of blood. The zombie beneath the cabin begins to attack, attempting to break through the structure. The driver becomes terrified and frantically calls out to the professor for help as the zombie beneath the cabin attacks him. However, the professor is preoccupied with shooting the zombie in the kitchen, initially ignoring the driver's pleas. Eventually, the professor manages to land a fatal shot to the zombie's head, putting it down. During the struggle, a bottle of liquor strikes the zombie's head and also hits its legs, but it manages to grab the driver and begins biting his feet. The driver's agonized screams alert the professor, who rushes in to assist him. Unfortunately, before the professor can reach the driver, the zombie pulls him through the broken section of the cabin. Megan and Daniel arrive to find the driver severely injured and on the brink of death. He passes away just as they reach him. Megan considers striking him in the head to prevent him from turning into a zombie, but Daniel intervenes and decides to take him away instead. He undergoes the transformation into a live zombie. Running, they make their way to the bus. When the professor joins them and inquires about the rest of the group, Megan informs him that 3 friends, along with the driver, have been killed, leaving only 2 survivors, with 2 others missing. The professor instructs them to remain on the bus while he goes in search of the missing individuals. The professor entrusts his gun to Megan as they discuss the dire situation. Megan begins to take responsibility for the events that have unfolded, blaming herself for bringing them to the jungle to work on the project and fearing that they won't survive the ordeal. Daniel reassures her, emphasizing that it's not her fault and expressing confidence that they will make it out of the situation alive and safe. Meanwhile, Megan's 2 surviving friends encounter a pursuing zombie. As they attempt to flee, the zombie nearly catches one of them. In a desperate bid to escape, they fight off the zombie with their axes, but the relentless creature refuses to relent. Eventually, they reach the bar area with numerous zombies but manage to evade them and return to the bus. They quickly board the bus, sealing the doors. The zombie outside attempts to attack and open the door but is unsuccessful. Megan and her friends start the bus and drive away, with a zombie clinging to the exterior. In a final effort to dislodge the zombie, one of Megan's friends kicks it, sending it tumbling away from the bus, ensuring their escape from the immediate danger. Megan and Daniel hear the sound of the bus, but they are unaware that the zombified driver is lurking nearby, remaining silent to avoid detection. As time passes, Megan and Daniel cautiously venture outside to investigate, but they encounter the zombified driver, who approaches them. Megan opens fire on him, but in the chaos, one of the bullets accidentally strikes Daniel, causing him to collapse. The driver moves in to attack Daniel, but Megan manages to shoot him in the head, eliminating the immediate threat. Megan then lifts Daniel and starts moving away from the scene. Along the way, they discover their two friends who had been on the bus. They usher them onto the bus and continue their journey. They adopt a strategy of plowing through any zombies that cross their path, crushing them under the wheels. However, they encounter a particularly resilient zombie, one that seems impervious to their efforts to eliminate it. This formidable zombie presents a new and potentially deadly challenge for Megan, Daniel, and their surviving friends. Their situation becomes increasingly dire as their bus stops working, and the persistent zombie begins breaking the bus window, capturing one of Megan's friends. As the zombie prepares to attack, the bus starts unexpectedly, but the zombie still holds onto Megan's friend. In the rush to escape, the bus collides with a cabin, resulting in the death of Megan's friend. Megan instructs her remaining friend to take the wheel, but their efforts to restart the bus prove futile. A zombie inside the bus poses a threat, moving to attack Megan, but Daniel intervenes, shooting the zombie in the head to eliminate the immediate danger. With Megan's friend now driving, Daniel's condition worsens due to his gunshot wound. Suddenly, their bus crashes due to poor visibility, resulting in a broken leg for the friend who was driving. All three of them are injured, with Megan providing medical treatment and setting the broken bone. They leave the damaged bus behind, which eventually explodes due to a gasoline leak. The trio takes shelter in a nearby house, with Daniel resting while Megan and her other friend keep watch. When a zombie approaches, Megan attempts to shoot it, but her bullets fail to hit the mark. The zombie advances to attack Megan from behind. However, her friend manages to shoot the zombie in the head in the nick of time, saving Megan from harm. As morning arrives, the professor joins Megan, Daniel, and her surviving friend. Shortly thereafter, the captain arrives in a car. The professor confronts the captain, demanding to know the truth about the black liquid in the drums and the mysterious events happening in the area, including the reanimation of the dead into zombies. The captain confesses that experiments were being conducted on prisoners with the black liquid, which ultimately resulted in their transformation into zombies. However, their conversation is interrupted when a zombie approaches. In a desperate attempt to escape, the professor shoves the captain in front of the zombie and rushes to the car. Unfortunately, the car keys were inside the zombie's mouth, as it had consumed the captain, rendering any escape futile. The story unravels to reveal that the prison had been conducting experiments on the inmates, leading to their transformation into zombies. These unique zombies not only attack humans but also devour other zombies. The film concludes with this revelation, leaving the fate of the surviving characters uncertain in this perilous and zombie-infested world.